Good day, everyone. Today I will be discussing all about other part of chapter 1. You are already done with your background of the study, and now I will explain the statement of the problem and purpose. Alright, so statement of the problem. Your SOP depends on the type of your research, whether it is descriptive or correlational. Okay, so in the statement of the problem, we have research questions. Okay, these are the questions of the researchers. Ito yung mga tanong mismo ninyong mga researchers. Okay, and we have parts of the statement of the problem and purpose. The first one is introduction, minor questions, major question, and number 4 is research purpose. Okay, your questions should be relevant to your topic. Okay, so for the introduction, it describes the presentation of the research questions and research purpose. And meanwhile, for the minor question, uh, stated here is the other specific instances of the problem that must be investigated in a research study in order to provide substantial research theories. And number 3, major question, stated the central inquiry of the research. And number 4, this the research purpose. Okay, it describes the goal of the study in achieving set of research results. Okay, so for the statement of the problem, this part, ito ang sabi nila, ito raw yung pinakamahirap na part. But if you know well your research and you know everything about your topic, magagawa nyo ng maayos ang statement of the problem ninyo. That is why before you start your research, you have to think topics that is or that are interesting for you. Now, we have sub-problems and main problem. For the sub-problems or minor questions, it has the variables needed in the research and their measurements. Meanwhile, for the main problem or major questions, it investigates the significant relationship or difference between or among variables. Okay, in minor questions, you can give variables na makakatulong sa research ninyo. Later, I will give examples. Okay? For the major question naman, dito na tayo hahanap ng significant relationships, difference, or effect. And remember, the answers for the sub-problems or minor questions must lead to the answers of the main, okay? Or the main question, or main problem, or major question. Okay, what we should do in creating a statement of the problem. The first thing is we have to start by introducing your research. Okay, for the introduction, it must contain the research title, alright, and then the reasons of presenting the questions and purposes. And remember that our introduction must be clear and direct. Remember, in doing a research, kailangan palagi tayong straight to the point. And of course, it should be understandable by readers. We have to use simple words and terms that are needed for our research. And then number 2, state the sub-problems or minor questions. Minor questions must be relevant to the major question. Tandaan ulit, palagi tayong babalik sa main or major question natin para malaman natin kung relevant ba ang ilalagay nating minor questions. Okay? And it must be relevant to the title structure. Uulitin ko. Balikan natin ang ating research title naman. Kasi baka mamaya yung mga tanong na naiisip natin yung mga tanong na naiisip natin sobrang layo na pala sa research title natin. That is why sa lahat ng gagawin ninyo kapag medyo nako-confused kayo, Balikan ninyo yung research title, balikan ninyo yung background of the study ninyo, and balikan ninyo yung main purpose ninyo. Okay? And it must be clear and direct as well. And then number three, we have to state the main problem or major question. Okay, for the major question, it must be complete, clear, and concise with the necessary information. It also reflects the type of study. So if it is descriptive, you are going to look for the differences or effects. And when it is correlational, hahanapin natin ang level of correlation ng mga variables natin. Okay? And also, the major question reflects the major variables of the study. So what are those major variables? Ito yung nakikita natin sa research title natin. Okay? Your variables or your major variables can be found sa research title ninyo. And lastly, you have to give your research purpose. Okay, it is the last part of the statement of the problem, the research purpose. It is also based on your research title and the type of your research. Okay, so those are um, parts or steps on making a statement of the problem. However, quantitative research questions usually start with how, what, and why. So, ito lang yung tatandaan natin na pwede tayo magsimula sa how, what, and why. Okay? And then it contains independent and dependent variables. It also look at connections, relations, or comparisons between variables. So, ito na yung sinasabi ko kanina na significant relationship, significant differences, significant effect. So, it can be found sa ating major question. Okay? So, let me give an example of a statement of the problem. Okay? So, in this examples, we will see. Okay? I have two examples, one for the descriptive and one for the correlational. The first one is for descriptive. Okay, so for the statement of the problem and purpose, this study, entitled Effects of Innovative Teaching in Mathematics to the Behavioral Performance of Senior High School STEM Students, Approach in Online Distance Learning Context, aim to answer these following questions along the research period academic year 2021 to 2022. Okay, as you can see, this is the introduction of the statement of the problem. Okay, we introduce the research title or it is very clear, 'di ba? So now let's see those questions. Okay, those questions under our statement of the problem. So since I have here the research title above, so now let's analyze this first question. What are the effects of innovative teaching in mathematics to the behavioral performance of senior high school STEM students in terms of learning interest, attention span, self-efficacy? In writing minor questions, we always have to make sure na relevant siya sa main purpose at major question natin. Now, as we can see, there are other variables under the behavioral performance of the students. Those are ABC. Yan, yung learning interest, attention span, self-efficacy. As it may help the researchers assess the effects of innovative teaching to behavioral performance of the students. Okay, this is one of the examples of minor question in this research. Now next is the second question. How innovative teaching in mathematics alter or retain students' interest based on A. Class discussion, B. Instructional materials, 3. Teaching routine, D. Processing of learning concepts. Number 3. How innovative teaching in mathematics alter or retain students' attention span based on class discussion, instructional materials, teaching routine, processing of learning concepts. In these questions, we have class discussion, instructional materials, teaching routine, and processing of learning concepts. Makakatulong ang mga variables na ito para sa research nila. Okay? So we have interest, attention, span, and self-efficacy. Okay? So ina-assess doon kung mababago ba ng innovative teaching or i-assess dito kung mababago ba ng innovative teaching in mathematics yung interest ng students, yung attention, and self-efficacy. Kayo as researchers, pwede rin kayong maglagay ng mga ganitong mga variables kung alam ninyong makakatulong ito sa pagsagot ng major purpose or major question ng research ninyo. Okay? And then I have here another minor question. Okay? Tungkol pa rin to dun sa research title na ito, Effects of Innovative Teaching in Mathematics. Now, number 4, how innovative teaching in mathematics alter or retain self-efficacy. So, dito sa question na to, self-efficacy naman, yung titingnan natin. Okay? Titingnan natin kung nababago or kung paano ba binabago or napapanatili ng innovative teaching in mathematics yung self-efficacy ng mga estudyante. Okay? Based doon sa class discussion, instructional materials, teaching routine, processing of learning concepts. Okay? And then last question is number 5. So number 5 is our major question. Why? Because we are going to look for the significance of our variables. Now, is there any significant effect of innovative teaching in mathematics to the behavioral performance of senior high school STEM students in terms of learning interest, attention span, self-efficacy? Okay, since our research title is Effects of Innovative Teaching in Mathematics to the Behavioral Performance of Senior High School STEM Students, Approach in Online Distance Learning Context. So meaning to say, the purpose, okay, the main purpose of our research here is to know the effect, diba? To assess whether there is significant effect. Okay, so we have variable innovative teaching in mathematics and behavioral performance. So dito sa major question natin, kung descriptive kayo, ganito yung gagawin ninyo. And kung correlational naman, ang gagawin ninyo, is there any significant correlation between variable A, variable B? Is there a significant relationship between your variables? Okay? So this is an example of descriptive study. Alright, so we have um, 4 minor questions and we have 1 major question. We always have, on our module, I only require you to provide 3, 2 minor and 1 major. Okay, that's okay. That's all fine. So next is the purpose of that study. Okay, ngayon, ano ba yung purpose ng study natin? Okay, ito yung unang statement na mababasa natin sa purpose. Based on the stated questions, the researchers aim to achieve relevant purposes such as 1. Identify the effects of innovative teaching in mathematics to the behavioral performance of senior high school STEM students in terms of learning interest, attention span, self-efficacy. So as we remember, the first question of our research is what are the effects of innovative teaching in mathematics, 'di ba? So yun yung unang question natin. Therefore, kung yun yung tanong natin, yun yung may purpose din tayo. Ang purpose natin is to know the effect, 'di ba? To identify the effect of that variable. Okay? And then second purpose, analyze how innovative teaching in mathematics alter or retain students' interest based on class discussion, instructional materials, teaching routine, and processing of learning concepts. Okay? And then the third purpose would be analyze how innovative teaching in mathematics alter or retain students' attention span. Ayan. So pagdating sa number 3, attention span naman yung tinitingnan natin. Okay, kung paano daw yun na babago o napapanatili o nare-retain ng innovative teaching in mathematics. Kasi yung number 2 kanina, retain. Itong number 3, sorry, yung number 2 ay students' interest. Yung number 3 is students' attention span. Okay, and then number 4, analyze how innovative teaching in mathematics alter or retain students' attention span naman. Okay, sorry. It should be self-efficacy. Ayan. Students' self-efficacy on class discussion, instructional materials, teaching routine, and processing of learning concepts. So, next is the purpose. So, as we remember, the major question is there any significant effect of innovative teaching in mathematics, diba? Therefore, our main purpose or the last purpose would be identify if there is any significant effect of innovative teaching in mathematics to the behavioral performance of senior high school STEM students in terms of learning interest, attention span, and self-efficacy. Okay? So, kung ano yung inyong major question, I mean, kung ano yung inyong research questions, yun din yung inyong purpose. Okay? And then now, let me give another example. Okay, so we have statement of the problem and purpose. So it is the same with the previous example, but this time this is an example of correlational research. Okay, statement of the problem and purpose. So as we can see, we have the introduction. This research entitled Study Habits as Correlated to the English Language Competencies of Selected Grade 11 Students aims to know the level of correlation between study habits and English language competencies of selected grade 11 students. The following question will be the basis for the progress of the study. The researcher aims to answer the following queries. So, ayan, so we have the introduction. The first question is minor question. Okay? So, according to the researchers, gusto nilang malaman kung ano ba yung study habit na yon. Okay, kasi kapag siguro na kapag nalaman kasi nila yung mga study habits na yun, makakatulong yun. Ma-establish yung research nila. Makakatulong yun yung mga questions na yun na masagot yung major question nila. Okay? Now, number 1, what type of study habits is being used by grade 11 students in understanding English language lessons? Independent learning, whether it is independent learning, collaborative communicative type rather, thorough lectures, or ICT mediated learning. Okay? The next question is another minor question. For number 2, what are the levels of English language competencies of selected grade 11 students in terms of reading comprehension, vocabulary skills, communicative reasoning? Okay, so as we can see, um, titingnan nung mga researchers yung level of English language competencies ng mga bata. Okay, in terms of their reading comprehension, vocabulary skills, communicative skills, or communicative reasoning. Okay, and then number 3, is there any significant relationship between study habits and English language competencies of grade 11 students or of selected grade 11 students? Okay, as we can see in the third question, we have significant relationship. Diba? Meaning to say this is our major question. Why? What is our title? Diba? Ano ba yung title natin? Hahanapin natin yung relationship ng study habits at English language competencies ng mga estudyante, diba? So, pagdating sa major question, syempre, Ganito siya. Is there any significant relationship between study habits and English language competencies of selected grade 11 students? Okay. Ngayon, tignan ulit natin yung purpose. Okay, yung purpose ng research na yon. So based on the stated questions, the researchers aim to achieve relevant purposes such as number one, 'di ba ang sabi ko kanina gustong malaman din ng mga researchers kung ano yung mga study habits ng grade 11 students. Ngayon, yung purpose niya, syempre, is to determine which study habit is commonly used by grade 11 students in studying English lesson. And then number two, analyze the level of English language competencies of grade 11 students aided by different study habits. And then lastly, the third purpose, okay, identify the correlation between the study habits and English language competencies of selected grade 11 students. And then last sentence dun sa purpose. These research purposes will be achieved following certain research protocols and be constructed and aligned with several theories reflecting the research context. Okay. So dito sa title sa statement of the problem natin sa correlational, three lang yung binigay kong questions. Two minor questions and one major questions. Okay? Ngayon, as we can see on our research questions and purposes, they are the same. 'Di ba? Kung ano ang research question ninyo, automatically, ganun din ang purpose ninyo. Iba lang yung construction niya. Siyempre, yung research questions niya, patanong. And then for the purpose, it is in statement form. So if you have four questions, okay, of course, apat din po ang research purposes ninyo. Okay? So all we have to do is to use the terms to know, to identify, to analyze, 'di ba? To determine. Ayan. So, yun. Tandaan ninyo kung ilan yung inyong statement of the problem or kung ilan yung questions ninyo, ganun din dapat yung objective ninyo or yung purpose ng study ninyo. Okay? Meanwhile, characteristics of a good statement of the problem naman ay kailangan. Okay, kailangan ninyong malaman because a good research question is essential to guide your research paper. Okay? Kasi class, yung statement of the problem, yan yung puso ng research ninyo. Kasi as time goes by, habang on process kayo ng research, kailangan yung balikan yan. Okay? Kasi baka maya-maya mawala kayo. So, kailangan ninyong balikan, wait lang, ano nga ba yung question ng research natin? 'Di ba? Ano nga ba yung tanong natin sa study natin? Okay? It describes exactly what you need to find out and gives your work, 'di ba, a clear focus and purpose. And also, all research questions should be focused on single problem or issue. Okay? Hindi pwedeng paiba-iba tayo ng issue. Hindi pwedeng by next chapter iba na yung topic. Okay? You should focus on your topic and you should focus on your problem. And then palagi nating balikan ang research title and background of the study para hindi tayo malito sa research questions. 'Di ba? Yung research kasi domino effect 'yan. Okay? Pagdating mo ng chapter 2, iba na yung naging topic mo hanggang dulo, iba na din. That is why kailangan natin balikan ng balikan ng balikan yung pinakauna ng research natin, especially yung chapter 1 kasi yan yung pinaka basic information, 'di ba? Basic idea ng ating research. Okay? And statement of the problem is it must be researchable. Okay? And it should be feasible to answer within the time frame and practical constraints. Make it sure na questions or make it sure na yung mga questions na ilalagay ninyo ay achievable. So we have to be logical in creating statement of the problem. Okay? And also it should be specific enough to answer thoroughly It must be relevant kung ano yung field of study ninyo. If that is relevant to your field of study, madali na lang sa inyo gumawa ng questions at may basis kayo. Okay, always remember that your research questions must be relevant to your research topic. Okay, kung nahihirapan kayong gumawa ng tanong, tingnan lang ninyo yung research title ninyo. Okay, tingnan lang ninyo yung background of the study ninyo para malaman ninyo yung basis. Okay, para may basis kayo sa paggagawa ng tanong. Okay, and then research purpose, lastly, must be aligned with the research problem and it reflects the research question and identifies the major question of your study. It must be direct and specific. Okay, so yun lang yung example and explanation about statement of the problem. Okay, you should be or your questions and your research title must be relevant. Okay? Kailangan hindi silang magkaiba ng idea. Okay? Kung ano yung main purpose ninyo, yun din yung main question ninyo dapat. Okay? So, that would be all for today for our lesson this week and thank you so much for listening.